A lovely warm welcome to Sally and Margaret. Where is she? There you are. Sally and Margaret, who have come and done this morning. While we were all sleeping, they have been doing this. And Fairtrade stalls are always colourful and bright and make you just want to go in and start picking and choosing. And it just looks like an Aladdin's cave. Including Christmas cards and chocolate advent calendars and coffee of every description. And we will be hearing much more about that later. But we're so grateful to Sally and Margaret for coming along today, and we will hear more. And they will bring us up to date with the whole Fairtrade project and hear how things are going in Cooper, in our local area. So thank you very much for coming along. And it's so good because we've been trying to find a date now for some time. And the date we settled on just happened to be the week after harvest. We're still in the season of harvest, aren't we? And the title of today's Spill the Beans service is actually Enough. Enough is Enough, which we will be hearing about shortly. Well, it's my great pleasure to invite Margaret to come and introduce the next item. Thank you, Margaret.
I think really what I have to do is introduce Sally to you properly, because she is the one responsible for all the wonderful products that you see here. And the pair of us have great fun together selling them in all sorts of places at different times. But she and her husband are the ones who have to keep everything stored in their garage, and she is the one who keeps very careful accounts of everything. Can I just also say before we start that the last time I spoke, it was mostly about the Zaytun Palestinian oil, and we all know that things are even worse than ever in the West Bank. After that service, because of the generous donations that you gave me, I was able to pay to have a seedling olive oil tree which will be planted in the next harvest, which I think is at the end of the year. I think there's a certificate somewhere, and it is due to the generosity of the Ceres, Kemback and Springfield people that did that. Come on, Sally. And first slide.
Can I just mic you up?
No, we're going to. But, yeah. I'll move over when it's Sally's turn. Here we are. What we're asking you to do today is to be a change. Enough is enough, and much as we all feel we would like to, I think we feel overpowered by the state of the world just now, and that we can't resolve so many of the awful situations. But one thing we can do is make a tiny change which will help in some ways. God has created and continues to create enough for our needs and for our comfort, but we want more, to the detriment of God's created world. Often we don't fully think about the impact of our decisions when shopping, buying items we feel we need, particularly the impact on the original producer and all the workers in the supply chain, including those at the retail shop face. Changing to buy a regular item that we use, which is fairly traded, is a tiny, easy step that we can all take to bring change to our commercial world of big profiteers. Coffee tea, bananas and chocolate. They are the 4 most popular things that people buy with the Fairtrade logo on them, and I'm sure many of you do. This is a coffee farmer in the Côte d'Ivoire in Africa. We also have a coffee farmer here with us today from Colombia, Carol's mum. I think from what she said, in the way that we might grow some tatties in the garden, Carol's mum grows coffee. So if you want to know more about it and how difficult it is, you chat to her afterwards. But of the 125 million people around the world who depend on coffee for their livelihoods, many of them are unable to earn a reliable living from the coffee they produce. That's what we want Fairtrade to do something about. The main, and Sally is going to get to say lots in a minute, but my favourite Fairtrade slide is the core vision and idea behind Fairtrade is that what we should do should be for our God-created planet and for all the people on it, not for the profit of people who already have far too much than they know what to do with. A few facts about fair trade. Do you want to elaborate, Sally? No?
Impromptu. This year, the Fairtrade symbol has been around for 30 years. Fairtrade was happening before that, but this year is the 30th anniversary of that Fairtrade symbol being used and put onto products. And you can see the figures there. The fair trade mark is what we normally look for if we're trying to establish whether something is fair trade or not. But there are many fairly traded products. We have a few here that don't have the symbol on, but we know that the companies that produce them actually go to the original farmers and make sure that they are receiving extra for what they're doing over and above what's paid for their product. And that is partly because to get the fair trade mark, you have to jump through so many hoops to be able to actually put that onto your product. And the smaller farmers can't always do that. And often you'll find that the fair trade mark is given to cooperatives, and it's through a cooperative that they will be able to do that. But there are lots of situations. For example, the zaytun oil that we sell at the moment doesn't have the fair trade mark on it. But that is because we wanted to support those farmers who are, they are able to fairly trade through zaytun, but they can't at this stage jump through all the hoops that they need to.
The reason being that it's a costly process to jump through these hoops. And now we're on to the next slide, Sally, which is for your turn, about tea.
Okay, I love the fair trade tea, and particularly the Tradecraft tea. But unfortunately, when Tradecraft closed down in 2023, early 23, everybody was saying, what do we do? What do we do about our tea? How do we get fair trade tea that we like? And I know, I must admit, I bought up boxes and boxes and boxes of it. And the last of it is actually in the box there, where you can, because it's now beyond its best before date, still perfectly good, but it's there. But Transform Trade, who you've got leaflets about on the table, decided that they wanted to do something about that. Now, they're supporting groups in various ways, but they wanted to be able to provide tea again and make sure that it was within an ethical supply chain. It wasn't easy, but due to radical collaboration between passionate supporters and the ethical retailer True Origin, and the inspirational smallholder tea growers, they've been able to work with people across the Rift Valley in Kenya, and it's now back. And there you will see the product of that. So I'm ordering that through True Origins. They've worked with the tea farmers, supporting them to fight for a better price for their tea and have more say about the terms on which they sell, so that they actually receive a living wage and over and beyond that the Fairtrade premium for their tea. Okay. Right, now this is the olive oil or olive groves. Zaytun is a social enterprise which was inspired by the love of the Palestinian culture, communities and cuisine. Zaytun exists to support the Palestinian farmers through fair trade. 100% of their profits are reinvested into the delivery of this mission. Palestinian farmers have been cultivating their lands for thousands and thousands of years, and they continue to do so despite the challenges of farming under the present situation and under illegal occupation in the West Bank. The farmers are just about to harvest their olives, and there's a lot of tension as they wait to see what they're actually able to harvest, because trees have been destroyed, they've been stopped from going to their olive groves and looking after the olive trees, and they're also anticipating increasing number of settler attacks when it comes to harvest time. For example, the settlers will go and divert the water so that the water doesn't get to the olive trees. But in amongst all that, the farmers it says that they are facing an undeniable truth. The land, it's the heart and soul of every Palestinian. The tough times are challenging as ever, but what stands out now is the lack of economic and social opportunities that they have, which only deepen their attachment to the land. And they're just determined to rebuild what they have with their own hands so that their children can continue to harvest that special product. We have all sorts of things that come from Zaytun on the stall here. We have the oil, which you know about. We have the za'atar, which is like a herb mix. And we also have the soap. The soap is made from olive oil. And in the position that we find ourselves in, where people are saying palm oil is no longer any good, that's not entirely true. But we shouldn't be using palm oil for this, that and the other. Zaytun have come up with an alternative for your soap, which contains olive oil, and it is a lovely soap. Anyway, that's my plug for that bit.
And I couldn't come and talk to you without mentioning the Kilombero rice from Malawi. Sally does have some small bags for sale. Often people say, oh, the kilogram's too much. I'm not selling the kilogram bags anymore because you can now buy the Kilombero rice in town in the Zico shop which is closed for a couple of weeks because they're opening new premises in the Crossgate towards the end of this month. So that's something to look out for. Places of worship, as well as schools and towns, can become a fair trade community. In talking to Sally and Jane and many others, Sally said, "You know, you're doing that at CKS. Why don't you make it official?" So Jane asked if we would do a little informing you about it today and find out what you think. You'll have a chance to discuss it after this talk. But Sally might want to say a word or two about the criteria.
It really is very easy to become a Fairtrade church. But why should you do it? Well, the Fairtrade Foundation feel that often that sort of the spread of Fairtrade is not recognised within churches, and by becoming a Fairtrade church, it will actually be captured, recorded, that you care about Fairtrade. And then I know that my own church, Cooper Old, it actually spills over into other things, that people are thinking about Fairtrade because they know we're a Fairtrade church. So when they're baking for the for events, they include Fairtrade products. They look for Fairtrade products, and that sort of thing. We'll just encourage you to do that. Now, there are two main criteria, and actually you will think, we're doing that, so why not become a Fairtrade church? Two main goals. One, use Fairtrade products wherever possible. I already supply you with your Fairtrade coffee. It suggests that you might also have Fairtrade tea and sugar, and that you share that information with the wider community. Now, you have so many events here that are community events, and by saying, we are a Fairtrade church, we support Fairtrade, it makes people think about Fairtrade. And I know in the Cooper Fairtrade group, that is our main aim, just to spread the ideas of Fairtrade and to say, this is something worth supporting, worth thinking about in the way that you purchase your weekly shop. And then the second bit, integrate Fairtrade into the life of your worship at Fairtrade Fortnight or other times of the year, events, stores and worship. Well, today, and I know other occasions, you have done that. It doesn't take very long to fill in the form. And when I filled in the form for Cooper Old we just renewed it in April this year, I thought, we haven't really done a great deal this year. But when I started to write it all down, and I sent it off, I think it must have been about 10:30 at night, by midnight, I had the reply that we had been granted a new certificate. So it doesn't actually take a great deal to do this, and you're already doing it. So I will just commend to you that you think about becoming a Fairtrade church, and I'm quite happy to help whoever fills in the forms to do that.
Thanks for that, Sally. As Sally said, the application is done online, which was why when Carol appeared today, I immediately grabbed her and said, Carol, you can do all these wonderful things online, can't you? So I think Carol and Sally, can maybe chat about that if you think it's a good idea. There is also one category that I sort of tweaked a bit. It's the bit that was in brackets that said, if you're giving a donation, which lots of you generous people do to the church, and I don't mean money, I mean bringing along your coffee, your tea, please try to bring Fairtrade products. And if you can't buy them, we'll help you to find them or even get them for you. But on to the conclusion. To be that change, can you think of something that you could start to regularly use that is fair traded. When you're in shops, could you ask if they have fair trade things, particularly if you're out for lunch, you're going on holiday, Jane and Ian, I'm sure you'll be eating out. You can ask, is the coffee and tea fairly traded? I do it all the time, as Tim will tell you. Buying fair trade is essential, but shoppers can't be the change on their own. We need the support of businesses and government to transform our global trade system so that it supports the millions of farmers who produce the food. Wouldn't it be wonderful, I often think, if our food industry had to label why things are cheaper in shops? Perhaps it would say because, well, the farmer that grew it doesn't actually need much. If all that amazing ability that's in marketing to get us buying different things was actually used to show where the things that we want come from, and to actually point out that maybe we should just think about having what we need rather than what we want. There is going to be time for discussion, I think, yes? And so John's got a couple of questions. John's ahead of me, as ever, yes. If you'd like to chat while you finish off your quizzes and eat the lovely Fairtrade chocolate about can you be the change, what you can do, and particularly, do you think it's a good idea if our church community becomes recognised as a fair trade community? And thank you for your patience.